Twitter synced with YouTube. So I've been sending them out myself, but they did them early, and whoever did them didn't have our schedule. But hey, here we are. We are live. We're good. We've got everything going. Chad is wondering if there's a show. Of course there's a show. It's just me and Adam. We just kind of move a little slower on Saturdays than we do on the other days. And Adam's, he's traveling. He had variables there. Had to figure out some technology in the room. Tell the audience what you were taking care of there, Adam.
I was making coffee, and I actually made it on the first try, which for me is an accomplishment. So feeling good. I did find out, though, that I forgot to actually change my flight from yesterday until tomorrow. So I got to pay for a whole new flight.
Oh, hashtag DFS life. Big ballers, big ballers. Well, you do have time if you can make it down to Jupiter. I hear there's a nice massage parlor down there. Good times for those of you that missed that. Gee, I don't know how you did, but a little fluffle there, a little sting there in Jupiter, and there we are. There we are. Robert Kraft. You can find out. Some of his most ardent fans were defending him to the death on Twitter. But hey, you gotta pick your battles. You gotta choose Bunker Hill and which hill you want to die on. So that's not the one I would have chosen. Hat tip to our friend CJ Kaltenbach. All right, let's get on in here. Let's see. X-Classic. Yes, those were 2% scores. I was looking at the $1, the $5, and the $8. Generally those scores will be a little higher or a better percentage finish if you're in anything below 20 maxes. So 3 maxes, single entries, etc. But there we are. So got that for you. How did your night go, Adam? I had a nice run there at the end with once I fell asleep during the first overtime. Paul George had a second overtime, which was rather nice, and left all the Russell Westbrook guys behind once Westbrook fouled out.
Yeah, that was a hell of a game. My night didn't go great. I ended up I had at least one Minnesota player in every lineup, and considering Teague sucked and Wiggins sucked and Starrett sucked, that didn't really put me in too good of a spot.
Yes, not always the best. Not always the best. We got 11 games. We are going to just jump right in here. We will go game by game. We do have, thankfully, props to Popcorn Machine there. They do look like they have the games up from last night. I was looking at a few of them. I think there are something like 11 teams on a back-to-back, so we will mention that as we go through. And then there are some big contests, but not the giant contests I was expecting there on some of the sites. You can get a $25,000 contest there on Yahoo that is rake-free. You're going to want to jump into that one. It will fill before lock. That is 1/4 the size of the one they ran on Thursday. Which hopefully you guys got over there because it only filled about 80%. With no rake, that makes it a really good deal. Use promo code AWESOMO and get $30 in Awesemo or in Awesemo in Yahoo player points for using the promo code AWESOMO if it is your first deposit there. All right, Adam, let's jump in here. We've got a variety of potential injury and news type situations that we'll be watching, but a lot can change. And as we saw last night, the entire slate went on its ear when Karl Anthony Towns was ruled out, and then 5 minutes before a lock of the 7 o'clock games, we had Luka Doncic ruled out. We've got Doncic going again tonight, or having the opportunity to play again tonight, so it will be interesting to see what happens there. That is one of the later games. It's actually the last game, the Lone Island game out there. So if you are playing Doncic and you're on late swap, make sure you have a plan in case he is not in. That plan most likely would be Donovan Mitchell as a direct swap. All right.
Karl Anthony Towns also on the slate.
Oh, is he? Yes, he is. Thank you. Against Milwaukee. So we will have to see there. And that was the first game Karl Anthony Towns missed in his career. Adam and I thought he was going to play. We had been talking about that before we were recording the pod last night because he traveled on his own. So he was in a car accident on the way to the practice facility or something like that, and then flew out with not with the team but caught up with them in New York City, and we were thinking, well, gosh, if he's flying, then he's going to be there. And then he got ruled out with a concussion. Well, one, you shouldn't fly if you have a concussion. The pressurization causes all sorts of potential risks. But we were thinking that perhaps he was more or less just going on his own because he didn't want to have the streak get missed. Now that it's broken, we'll have to see. or not broken, but ended. We'll have to see what happens for tonight, because for those of you that have been in car accidents, even minor rear-end collisions, it hurts a lot more the next day or 2 days later with the old, whiplash and all that other stuff that can happen. So just keep an eye on that. But we're going to start out with Indiana and Washington. We got to see Washington get their ass kicked once again, Adam, by the Charlotte Hornets. They were on the road in Queen City last night. They are back in Washington taking on the Indiana Pacers, who were played last night as well, and were without Miles Turner. So as we approach things here, Adam, let's talk a little bit about the Indiana side first. What do you think the odds are of Turner playing? I'm guessing it's probably 50-50. So let's first say, if he's in, are you playing him? If he's out, let's proceed with that. So first talk about if he's in.
Yeah, I mean, if he's in, it's a great spot. Going up against this Washington front court, it's one of the better spots that you can have in the league. Turner obviously has been playing really well when he's been healthy. So, if he's in, it's a great spot for him. If he's out, then we're right back where we were last night, where we have a really cheap Domantas Sabonis, we have a minimum priced Kyle O'Quinn, and it's the exact same analysis. It's really an even better spot for them probably than they had last night. But just play a lot of both of them.
All right. Now, he's out. The trickle-down effect. Kyle O'Quinn got about 20 minutes, played in a couple different stints. Again, we weren't expecting much more than that, but he was the absolute flat minimum, so that made him quite a popular option. And, he didn't kill you if you had him, didn't kill you if you didn't have him, but what he allowed you to do with the rest of your team made the differences on that. Expanding out across the rest of the Pacers here in this game that's checking in with a 225 over under, which is the fourth lowest on the slate right now. Let's work our way through the Pacers.
Yeah, so I mean, the front court is obviously the priority for me, but then beyond that, you still get into guys who I think are reasonable secondary options. It's a good matchup for Bogdanovich and Matthews, the two primary three-point shooters on this team. Washington's been one of the worst teams this year at defending the three-point line. I would give the edge to Bogdanovich, but there is a price difference between them. Thad Young in a good spot because Washington sucks at rebounding. Darren Collison in a good spot without Oladipo, potentially without Turner. And, just playing a weak Washington defense. So I like Young, Collison, and Bogdanovich, but much less than I like Sabonis, O'Quinn, or Turner if you were to play.
All right. I just wanted to see here where we have O'Quinn. He is at the same minimum once again. So, yeah, if Turner's out, that's an easy one there with O'Quinn in this matchup. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Moving over to the Washington side, a little bit interesting. They have the interchangeable parts, as you and I have mentioned a few times when we broke down on the podcast as well for the Early Bird podcast. We have Jeff Green, you've got Bryant, you've got Portis, you've got Parker, you've got Trevor Ariza, all capable scorers. Bryant not quite as much, but the price does reflect that. All decent rebounders. Most of them can move the ball around a little bit. They can get into some steals. But all five of them are not going to go off on the same night, Adam. How do you want to approach these guys? And then we'll talk about the backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, for right now, it's still kind of just mixing and matching these guys because we haven't seen exactly how Scott Brooks is going to put it all together. We did see, to close out the first half last night, we saw a really big Washington lineup with Thomas Bryant at the 5, Bobby Portis at the 4, Jeff Green playing small forward, Trevor Ariza playing shooting guard, and then Bradley Beal at point guard. They played that for somewhere around 5 minutes. It wasn't particularly effective, but if they continue to do that more frequently, it hurts Satoransky. It makes it so that we can feel a little bit better about all of the front court players since there's more minutes available there. They didn't go to it in the second half, though. You still had Thomas Bryant finish the game with 17 minutes. So with Washington right now, like the biggest takeaway for me is that we still know Bradley Beal is going to play huge minutes. And if they are going to run that lineup more often, it's beneficial for him because it gets him more time without Satoransky. It gets the ball in his hands more. And he's been even more productive without Satoransky than he is alongside him. Beyond that, it helps to solidify Jeff Green's minutes a bit. It helps to solidify Portis. So I'm going to end up projecting Green for about 30 minutes, Portis for about 30 minutes, Parker around 26. And then for now, I'm going to end up keeping Bryant down in that like 18-minute range. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward, because from an offensive standpoint, that lineup should work fine. Thomas Bryant and Bobby Portis both can space the floor. Jeff Green obviously can shoot, so can Ariza. It's more of a defensive issue. And having Bobby Portis and Thomas Bryant out there together really, really makes your front court weak defensively. On the other hand, it's not very good defensively anyway. So it's really just a matter of seeing what Scott Brooks does going forward, whether he just looks to basically start, outscoring opponents as much as possible and relying on them offensively, or if he tries to make the defense work with a bunch of guys who don't play defense.
Here's an interesting number. I went back 5 weeks basically for my filters here to get everybody about 15 games and not worry about going back 30 days and missing a whole week with the All-Star break. But based on these numbers here, so more or less what would be over their last, quote, 30 days of what would normally happen, but it's really their last 37 days to pinch out the All-Star, or to remove the issue of the All-Star break. We have the Pacers as the second best defensive rating in the league, and they're playing at the 24th fastest pace, or 6th slowest pace, if you want to look at it that way. So that one mires things down a little bit there for the Wizards. The Wizards themselves are playing at the 6th fastest pace, and let's see, I know their defense was getting a little bit better. Oh, wow. Did I sort that in the wrong? Yes, thank God. I sorted that in the wrong order. Because they were fourth, Adam. They're really fourth worst.
They're bad.
I just wanted to make sure they were still bad. Sort of caught me off guard there. But so all this is coming in to say a solid spot there for the Pacers. And then we kind of know who the Wizards are at this point with their core rotation. We just don't know where that plus or minus 5 to 7 minutes can get added or taken away, which is the risk amongst the front court. As you mentioned, Beal just absolutely phenomenal. Satoransky, okay, reasonably priced, but now that they've got a lot more healthy bodies, it's not exactly like we'll see him triple-double again, and not the best matchup for him, but he can be in the mix. Anything else here from the Wizards?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to like kind of quickly expand on it, because I talked about how I'm looking at them going forward, but you alluded to it in this particular matchup. It's a tough spot, and so you're already taking a risk on any of these front court guys, getting minutes, and now it's not a particularly good spot. So they're more of large field tournament plays for me than anything. Beal, maybe being the exception just because he plays so many minutes and he's like the entire offense. But even on an 11-game slate, I think there's going to be better options than Beal.
All right, moving along here. Got so many tabs open. I got to get a third monitor. That would help things out. We've got the Lakers and the Pellies. So you and I were waiting to see what would happen here with the Pelicans and where their minutes were going to go. So looking at, they had their starters as expected, Kenrich Williams, Elfrid Payton, Julius Randle, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday. First guy in off the bench in their sort of change there, 2/3 of the way through the first quarter, in came Eton Moore, Jahlil Okafor, and then Stanley Johnson. So no real surprise there. The thing that was not surprising, but it is in stark contrast to see, Anthony Davis did not play in the fourth. He did not play in the second quarter. He ended up with just under 20 minutes. That's probably what we're going to see again tonight. It makes sense. Yeah, if he plays, it makes sense that they're playing him after, starting and then the second half, because he's got time to warm up or whatever. But once he goes to the bench, I don't expect to see him back in the quarters. Okay, so that's how we're looking at them. Julius Randle did play in all 4 quarters, didn't play very much in the fourth. He ended up with 25 minutes, and then Drew Holiday also got 25 minutes, but he barely played in the fourth. So that was a little bit frustrating. Now, they were down throughout most of the fourth quarter by double digits and ended up losing 126-111. Clearly, they don't want to win, but that I was not expecting it, and we'll have to see what happens tonight. Julius Randle going against his former team. I like that. If he's going to, get 30 minutes, this would be a game where we'd see that. Davis probably off the charts or out of the mix, but we have the whole LeBron thing coming in. We've got, hey, Lakers, remember we tried to screw you with these trade deals, so who knows what's going on here. You got Drew Holiday. I don't really want to trust any of the Pels outside of Randle.
I don't trust Randle. I mean, I think there's upside, but like he still played 25 minutes last night. The two takeaways for me from last night's game were that Chuck Diallo played 26 minutes. Obviously, if Randle were to get more minutes tonight, that could eat into Diallo. But at a near minimum price tag, even if you were to play, 20 to 22 minutes, I think you're fine there. So I'm interested in him. And then the other thing that stood out was before the game, they said we were going to see 20 to 25 minutes from Elfrid Payton in his first game back. We got 28.3 from him, like the one guy on this team who played, more minutes than they had said he was going to. So if we're going to get around 28 minutes from him at 4,700 on DraftKings in a fast-paced game against the Lakers, I think that's pretty interesting too, especially because if we're saying that Holiday plays 25 minutes and Davis plays 20 minutes and Randle plays 25 minutes, that means there's more minutes where Peyton's playing without some combination of those guys on the floor, which means more rebounding opportunities, more scoring workload for Peyton as well. So I think he's interesting. I think Diallo's interesting. Randle in tournaments has the upside, but I think he's just really risky, obviously, from a minute standpoint. And then beyond that, I just don't really see the need to take a chance on Drew Holiday in 25 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. They were asking where was Okafor in this game. He ended up with 17 minutes play. He came in that first shift of players in the first quarter. He came in, did not start the second quarter. Came in in the first shift. Changed there. I've been playing hockey, so shift change is now going to be my word today, Adam. We've got. And I've been having success. Use the Osmo projections, the rankings, the line rankings from Alex, very, very good. And Jay Kari's projections have been phenomenal. So I'm continuing to play hockey since I had a nice little run over the All-Star break. But then Okafor did not play at all in the third, which kind of makes sense because they had Davis and Randle and those guys out there. And then he came in a little bit there in the fourth. So I'm not really excited by Okafor either. This just seems, as Adam mentioned, that you've got Diallo. I'm still okay with rolling out Randle, and then excellent call out for 4,700 Elfrid Payton. That's a nice one there, Adam, because they still don't have ball handlers, and if Drew's not going to be out there, it's certainly not going to be Eton Moore. We've seen Frank Jackson. We know what Frank Jackson is. He will be absorbing minutes. He probably will not be effective. But he's a discount dandy I don't think you can go to either, because who the hell knows what he's going to do? Because it's not like they're going to try to develop him, right?
This team pretty quickly went from similar to the Tom Thibodeau Timberwolves, where you're getting huge minutes from 3 or 4 guys, to a bad version of the Hawks.
Yeah, that's well put. Now, I'm sure that the social experiment pricing on DraftKings is going to keep pushing Davis down. 8,100 is still a lot. I mean, if he only got 33 fantasy points last night. He got 25 in the game prior to that. I don't think it's worth it.
If Davis sits, then obviously Okafor becomes a good play too.
Absolutely. But keep an eye on Davis. For me to play him, he's gonna have to get by about 7,000 before I'm willing to take that chance, because I don't see the upside. So he's gonna have to have a phenomenal game in there to make it all happen in his limited minutes. Now let's talk about LeBron. 10,800 on DraftKings, but this seems like a nice matchup. LeBron has said, okay, this is it. We pretty much have to win 80% of our games down the stretch. This is a very winnable game for them, because New Orleans is just going to, cover their eyes and say, please don't run up the score too bad, is how I'm guessing this is going to happen. I like James. I'm okay with Kuzma. And then I want your take on Ingram or Rondo as a ball handler here. We've got Ingram at 6,000. We've got Rondo at 5,700. Rondo most likely will be coming off the bench here. Any interest in either of those guys, or are you going to concentrate this on your forwards here for the Lakers?
I mean, I have some interest in Ingram. He's coming off of a 41-minute game against the Rockets where he played really, really well. He still has not played well alongside LeBron for most of the season. So I don't want to put too much stock in his performance in that game, especially with his price tag coming up a little bit. But with them needing to win games, I think you're going to see a couple more minutes for a lot of these guys. You saw 41 from Ingram, you saw 38 from Kuzma, you saw 40 from LeBron. So I think 6K for Ingram is fine. But LeBron, obviously the one that really stands out at less than $11,000. I have him projected for 38 minutes right now. If it's really competitive down the stretch, you could see more. So yeah, I think that LeBron is obviously a really good play. Kuzma, Ingram are fine. Other than that, Rondo still only played 20 minutes in that last game. KCP and Bullock are expensive enough. Well, KCP just not really getting the minutes. Bullock expensive enough that I don't really see the need to go to him either.
Right. Anything else you want to mention from this one, or shall we continue on since we still have 9 more to go?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Again, Adam will be writing the deep dive article today, so we'll cover various things that are, Adam will be covering various things in there as he uncovers them during his research. We, of course, will have wild and crazy news happening at some point because it is February NBA post All-Star break, and then you will get Live Before Lock Fast Eddie Fear. I'm double checking on the time, but I think he's going to go live at 5:30 since there are 11 games, and he tends to like to have a more extra time when he's doing these shows as the main show.
One quick thing I'll point out from the Lakers, or just a rotation thing, and it's kind of important because for a lot of the season we've seen the Lakers, even against smaller opponents, we had seen them, back when they had Zubats playing 48 minutes between McGee, Chandler, and Zubats. I think it's worth pointing out that in the game against Houston, where Clint Capella did close the game and played significant minutes in the fourth quarter, JaVale McGee didn't step on the floor in the fourth. Neither did Tyson Chandler. Kyle Kuzma closed at the 5. I think that just boosts Kuzma's value going forward if they're going to continue doing that. And because they did it against Capella, I'm not going to project more minutes for McGee because of, a matchup against Julius Randle or Check Diallo.
We have our next game. Back to the page here. We're going to talk about Brooklyn and Charlotte. Charlotte is on a back-to-back. Both are at home. We have the Nets coming in here. An intriguing spot here for Brooklyn because I'm looking to their front court, Adam, and I'm actually quite interested in both Jarrett Allen at 4,900 and Ed Davis still at 3,500. Now, I will have some of each on my lineups, but I've been setting rules in Cruncher, and this is something you've talked a lot about, but I won't play them on the same team. So I always say play no more than one of this pair, because really for either one of them to have a good game, it's likely to come at the expense of the other, unless they're playing a team that has a more daunting front court, which I don't really think that Charlotte does to warrant not having that rule in place. As you look here to the Brooklyn side first, Adam, so I think our value plays are going to be Davis and Jarrett. Joe Harris is reasonable coming off his three-point shootout victory. He is at 4,500. And then, of course, you've got the reintroduction of Karis LeVert, adding into the mix with Damari Carroll, Alan Crabbe, D'Angelo Russell. They're at 8,200. What do you like here as we go up the price point or the price tags? Because this is a little tougher matchup. It's a tougher minutes allocation that we've seen for a lot of these guys because enough of them are healthy once again that it can be a little bit tough, and they just kind of go all over the board with these guys. If we look at their last game, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players of the 11 that played were between 22 and 26 minutes. And then the lone outpost was, it was Alan Crabbe for 35 minutes. Who saw that one coming? Point exactly. Yep. He drew before the game, the coach drew somebody's name out of the hat and said, "You're getting 30 minutes. The rest of you guys, you're going to take what you get." What do you think here of this team? Feels like a good cross-off spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really tough to have confidence in really any of these guys for a couple of reasons. For one, they're healthy again, like you said. Even Jared Dudley played 7 minutes in that game, and so we've seen in the past that when he has the opportunity, Kenny Atkinson runs as many players as he possibly can for whatever reason. Like there's no reason Treveon Graham's still playing 23 minutes, but he is. So until that starts to change, it's really tough to trust minutes on guys. But then also, even if you ignore the minutes issue with D'Angelo Russell, we had seen earlier in the season that he does become a bit less productive when he's playing alongside Karis LeVert. Now you had LeVert back in the starting lineup. He played 26.5 minutes, could have actually played a few more, but he subbed out with 3.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So I think that you see probably less productive minutes from Russell in addition to fewer minutes. It just makes it really tough to have confidence in any of these guys. I agree with you on the centers being cheap, but again, there's just always opportunity cost at the position as well. If Ed Davis had power forward eligibility, I would like him more. 3,500 at center, I think still fine, but again, you're getting anywhere from like 18 to 24 minutes most likely. So, it's still tough to trust in there. Karis LeVert's kind of interesting at 5,500 because at some point he's going to get back to his 30 minutes, but on an 11-game slate, it's just not a spot where I plan on, being really overweight on him or anything like that.
All right. Our next one here is going to be the Charlotte side. Now, interesting development there for Charlotte last night. They had Jeremy Lamb coming off the bench. That was not really an announced move that came from the Charlotte's PR, but it sounds like it's something that's going to happen going forward with Lamb off the bench and with Miles Bridges drawing some starts here. Now, Adam, there's a little known rule in the NBA that Miles and Mikal Bridges cannot both be starting at the same time. So fortunately, because Mikal Bridges was pulled and Kelly Oubre is now starting for the Phoenix Suns, those brothers, they can't play at the same time. And yes, I know they're actually not brothers, but don't ever let facts get in the way of a good narrative.
I actually had no idea. I 100% thought they were brothers.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, not even close. Didn't even grow up in the same area. Unlike those, or similar, shall we say, to. Oh, have you seen the minor league baseball players that are both named Brady something or other? They have red hair. They're both like left-handed. They wear glasses and a beard, and they have the exact same name, and there's no relation whatsoever between them.
I don't think so.
We'll drop you that link because you'll get a good chuckle out of that. Back to NBA. Do you like Miles Bridges as a starter? Let's begin there.
No, he's the example of a guy who, you'll see him get more minutes potentially. He played 29 last night, which obviously is an uptick, but he's not going to steal usage from Kemba Walker. I don't really think that, especially on an 11-game slate where we already know that there is going to be pretty good value most likely from several spots. I don't really think you need to get there. 3,200, it's not like you can really go wrong, but he's not somewhere I think I'll get with much frequency just because, I still don't think he's going to do a lot in this offense.
All right. Moving out to some of the better players here, as expected and as pointed out, we have seen Cody Zeller make a big difference on what is going on there with Kemba Walker. We have also seen Cody Zeller top 30 fantasy points in each of his last 3 games there on DraftKings. And his since he's been coming back from injury, he is averaging about 5 fantasy points more per game than he was before injury. But the price is ticked up to 5,300. We don't generally get monster games from him, Adam, but if he's going to drop a double-double, which is what we're going to need on DraftKings because we're going to need to get that 1.5 bonus points, and we're going to need the extra rebounds for him to make a difference in our lineups, this would be the spot to do it. That said, with 11 games, I don't think I can go here to Zeller at 5,300.
I mean, I still have some interest. Brooklyn's front court's just absolutely terrible. A lot will have to do with, what opens up throughout the day. Like if we lose Kylo Quinn, if we lose Sabonis, Towns is in, so we lose Gibson, then I think Zeller becomes more appealing because it obviously is a really good spot. And he has been playing really well since coming back, from a rebounding standpoint. His rebounding's been up, and overall, he's just been very productive. But I agree with you where he's just not the kind of guy that very often can go out there and give you like 40 to 50 points. So normally he gives you, when he's around 5K, he's normally giving you right around, that 6x, which people really like. But at the same time, at the center position, normally you can do better than that, whether it's going cheaper or paying up to the top and really getting, a lot of raw point upside. So it depends how the slate breaks down, but I do really like the spot for him.
Okay. Looking at some of the other guys here for the Hornets, Kemba Walker at an even 9,000. That's a reasonable price point. This will be the third time these two teams have played. He is averaging about 1.2 fantasy points per minute in the previous two matchups. Of course, things change, etc., but we do like to see that. You've got Malik Monk. Nah, we're not going to talk about him. But you've got Nick Batum, who's 4,500, which is discounted. You've got Jeremy Lamb coming off the bench. Amongst the rest of these guys here from a fantasy perspective, being Walker, Lamb, and Batum, is there anybody that is standing out on a points per dollar viewpoint?
I love Kemba. So we had talked a lot about how Zeller benefits him on a per minute basis, and since Zeller returned from his injury 6 games ago, you've gotten about a little over 1.3 fantasy points per minute from Kemba. But also without Jeremy Lamb with Zeller on and Lamb off this season, you've gotten about 150 minutes from Kemba. He has a 35.7% usage rate, which makes sense since you do expect an uptick to go somewhere when Lamb's not out there, and the most reasonable place for it to go is Kemba. He's averaged 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Since last season, he's played 236 minutes without Lamb or Howard on the floor. With Zeller on, he's averaged 1.4 fantasy points per minute, 37.3% usage rate. The assist percentage comes down a little bit, but the per minute production is going up, the usage is going up. So I absolutely love this spot for Kemba.
All right. Anything else in this one, or shall we continue along here?
But Batum's fine. The price tag's still cheap, and Lamb going to the bench shouldn't hurt Batum. I think it gives more rebounding opportunities. It should, as the sample size gets bigger, give him more usage, even though we haven't really seen that yet. And the same goes for Marvin Williams. So Williams and Batum are both secondary options for me. Kemba is a priority. Zeller, depending on how the slate breaks out, is a good play.
All right, let's get to a good one here. The Phoenix Suns going against the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta is on a back-to-back. Phoenix got a day off. Just a reminder, there are 3 games tomorrow, I think 3:30, 6, and 7. None of the teams playing tomorrow are playing today. Atlanta is favored by a bucket at home here, 234 projected over-under. That is the second highest on the slate today. I think the operative guy that's going to be in a lot of people's lineups is going to be Kent Bazemore, who is checking in at 4,400. We have Kelly Oubre, who has been getting a ton of shots here. TJ Warren is going to be out again, and I think that's a guy I definitely have my eye on in this particular matchup. Starting off with the Suns, with Kelly Oubre going into the starting lineup, do you like him better in the starting lineup, or did you like him better off the bench where he did get a little more usage, just the primary scorer for the second?
I think it kind of evens out for me. Obviously, you prefer him as the primary scorer off the bench from a per minute standpoint, but if he's going to play more minutes, I think he still gets his in the starting lineup. He played 40 minutes against Cleveland. I don't expect that, but or at least according to the Popcorn Machine, I thought he had played 33. But either way, he played a lot of minutes against Cleveland. So I think that going to the starting lineup helps him from that standpoint, and I still think he'll get enough usage that he's still a good play. Especially,
41 minutes is seen it on another source. So, all right, branching out to some of the other members of the Suns, DeAndre Ayton at 7,000. Tough spot. We've already mentioned a center from every game that we've talked about so far, but he is a guy that definitely has some tournament upside here. Perhaps it's a day for fantasy draft where you can play 3 guards, 3 bigs, and 2 utilities. You can get all the centers your heart desires, well, as long as your heart doesn't desire more than 5 on one lineup. We also have Jaren Jackson at 5,800. Good God. Jaren Jackson not going to be playing for a while, out indefinitely with a sore quad. Josh Jackson, not to be confused with Jim Jackson, is in here at 30 minutes in 2 of his last 3 games. your mileage may vary. I'd much rather go to Kelly Oubre in this one, but he would be the pivot on the same team. And then, of course, Booker at 8,300. That feels like a fun price point with Booker and Trae Young dueling against each other. My shell lineup has two players from each side on this game, Adam. What say you with the rest of the Suns?
Yeah, I mean, I might end up even getting more than that. I just absolutely love this game, and I really like the price points. I mean, Kelly Oubre, we already talked about at 6K, but DeAndre Ayton at 7,000 played 34 minutes last game. I think that's fine. Booker played 38, and he's 8,300. Tyler Johnson not very productive alongside Booker on from a minute or a per minute standpoint, but if he's going to play 32 or 33 minutes at $4,100 against Atlanta, that's another really good spot. So really anyone in this starting five based on the rotation that we saw last game is appealing. Josh Jackson would be my least favorite, but Oubre and Ayton would be my favorites, but it's a really, really appealing spot for the Suns.
All right, on the other side here, we do have Kent Bazemore. As we mentioned, he's coming off a solid game, seems to be back to health. The price point is right where we would like it to be. In addition to Bazemore here, I'm trying to get that. Oops. Popcorn machine, don't do that to me. I'm getting it's a game up world. All right, we're going to let you talk for a second here, Adam, because my wife just got home. The dog's going to go nuts. But talk a little bit here about Atlanta.
Yeah, so, obviously love the Phoenix side of this game, but I love the Atlanta side too. This is a spot where even if you're not going to force game stacks, because I'm not a huge fan of doing that, especially on bigger slates, but this is one where I think I'll just naturally get there because I'm going to have top plays at like every position from this game. And from the Atlanta side, you start with Trae Young, who's been playing really, really well, still getting huge minutes, played 36 minutes last night. If you put him in that 34 to 36 minute range here with around a 28% usage rate, you still get a very nice projection in this matchup. Bazemore, who you mentioned at the top, I think is one of the clear top values on the slate. He was disappointing last night in his production, but he still played 33 and a half minutes. And that is more than I think we could have possibly hoped for. Now you get a really good matchup here against Phoenix. He's got multi-position eligibility on DraftKings, which certainly helps as well. So I don't really see any way to get away from Bazemore. You get a really good spot for Collins against the poor rebounding front court for Phoenix, playing 33, 34 minutes. You mentioned on the podcast, and I do agree with you, that John Collins has been a guy for a while now who it seems like if you don't roster him, you very rarely get burned. But the price tag's just gotten to a point for me where I have trouble thinking that continues. The rebounding numbers have come down a little bit, but it's a really good rebounding spot for him. The minutes have been there. He's still getting some backup five, and I just have trouble seeing him not doing well in this spot. So again, it's just a lot of ways that you can go on this Atlanta team.
All right. Speaking of a lot of ways to go, 42-year-old Vince Carter, Adam, true or false? Since you got me on a trivia question last night, which I think we'll talk about again, but true or false? Vince Carter, in his 21 years in the league, played for Phoenix as one of the 8 teams he has played for. True or false?
False.
He did play 1 year with them.
Did he really?
Yes.
When was that?
Way, way, way back in the day. It was in 2010 and 11. Played 51 games, started 41. He also played for Orlando that year. He was traded from Orlando. So
right.
There we go.
I remember that.
Finally, revenge. I needed payback after you got me really good last night. So, but back to that, and I see the truth in chat is mentioning that Jamal Crawford, yes, he did play for Atlanta. So you've got dueling. The average age of Crawford and Carter is just over 40 years old. So shout out to them. Play them on the same lineup for old time's sake for one last.
I mean, we got Alex Len revenge too.
Yes, absolutely. Now, what I was looking at was the game flow in the last night's game there for Atlanta, and we had Wizards game up here. Let's look at this one. But Dedmon and Len split evenly the minutes. Or let me rephrase that. Dedmon got more. Len played when Dedmon wasn't, and vice versa. So there was no overlap. That's a little bit concerning for somebody like Alex Len, in my opinion.
Yeah, that wasn't like an Alex Len endorsement. It was just saying he used to play for the Suns. There's one more revenge narrative that if you can get it, you win at trivia from this game.
This game. Oops. Let me look quickly because we don't have a lot of time. I do not know.
Kelly Oubre drafted by the Hawks.
Really? Was it drafted by the Hawks or a Hawks pick that was owned
selected by the Atlanta Hawks?
But how basketball works is it's whichever team has.
It was a draft day trade.
Okay. Right, but just saying. So like whoever owns the Miami first round pick this year, or the Brooklyn one, they'll still say drafted by Brooklyn, which is why basketball does that. Is so freaking archaic. I have no idea.
Oubre was selected by the Hawks with the 15th overall pick. His draft rights were then traded to the Wizards.
Yeah, but they didn't believe in him. Clearly. All right. I need an excuse, or you need an excuse to play more Kelly Oubre.
Yeah.
I don't think so. All right. Now that we've gotten a little silly here, anything else you want to bring up from this game before we continue?
No, I mean, in all seriousness, within reason of guys that are like actually in the rotation, I would not make a strong argument to talk anyone off of rostering any of them, like at least to some extent. The priorities for me, obviously being Trae Young, John Collins, and Bazemore from the Atlanta side, and then being Booker, Ayton, and Oubre from the Phoenix side.
All right. Moving on to our final 9 o'clock game here, or 7 o'clock game. We have Memphis at Cleveland. Memphis on a back-to-back. Jaren Jackson Jr. is dealing with a thigh injury, as I mentioned, or a quad injury. Is out indefinitely. So we no longer have Marc Gasol there, and Jonas Valanciunas was out for personal reasons. So I didn't see any more on that. He is still listed as questionable. I don't know if that's still a paperwork or a visa issue. I thought they had that cleared up, so not entirely sure why he's out. If he is out, this is going to open up a lot of opportunity for Yvonne Rabb, and you've got him checking in at a more expensive $5,900 there on DraftKings. If memory serves, he was a little bit cheaper on FanDuel. Let me pull up that pricing, but let's assume Joe Val is out. How are you going to negotiate that $5,900 price tag for Rob?
It's going to be tough to prioritize him, I think. I know he had a good game last night, but he still only played 25 minutes. That's concerning to me. It obviously will depend also on Valanciunas, like you said, but and on Noah. I mean, it's not like Noah's locked to play here. It is a back-to-back. He did play 30 minutes last night. I assume that he does. But, so if we assume that Joe Val's out and Noah's in, I think, Rob's okay, but he's not a priority for me. Like, I would rather get Kelly Oubre at basically the same price point.
When in kind of stretching over there to Noah as well, what the hell is? I mean, how did he just languish on the bench for the Knicks forever, and now he's playing like beyond what I would have thought would be reasonable minutes? Not that there's really meaningful minutes at this point for the Grizzlies, but that was just kind of a surprise. And then Rob is just 3,800 on FanDuel, so he is in that drop range. It will cost you a power forward spot, but very well could be worth it if Joe Val is out. But back to,
you said Rob is how much on FanDuel?
3,800. 3,800. Yes, he is 2,100 more on DraftKings.
Yeah, so Rab on FanDuel is one of the easiest plays on the slate, I think.
Yes. But what do you think is the deal with Noah, the go forward? If he plays, he had a year where he was basically running the offense in Chicago and was just absolutely phenomenal and playing like 38 minutes a game and getting like 6 assists a game. And just, it was crazy because they had so many injuries 1 year under Thibodeau. He's got a lot of mileage on him. He's been running to the ground. He is a guy that ends up with a ton of soft tissue injuries and other nagging injuries. If he plays tonight, I want to play him. But does he play more than 20 or 25 minutes assuming Joe Val's out?
So, looking to previous back-to-backs, on the 12th and 13th, he played 18 and 20. Both of those games, Valanciunas was in, but he played his normal rotation in both. On January 25th and 26th, he played 21 and 18 minutes, which is, basically at the time was his normal rotation. So we haven't seen any monster minute games on back-to-backs yet, but we haven't seen him really take a hit either. He's seemed to be fine. Like, he's played way more minutes than I have expected. The one thing I will point out from last night's game is that Bruno was in foul trouble throughout the entire game. He picked up 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes. He picked up his 3rd foul after the next minute. He picked up his 4th foul 2 minutes into the 3rd. So we did see Noah taking some of those minutes and playing more minutes alongside Ivan Rabb. So I would project Noah once again for like in that 25, 26-minute range. If Valanciunas is out, I still think that will get me plenty of him. I just would be cautious, giving him a 30-minute projection again.
Yeah, whereas last night he was in the category of I don't care how much I get, I'm good. The back-to-back, it's like, no, I don't really want to go more than the field. I don't think we have ownership.
No, I mean, I'm still fine doing that, but
yeah, I'm just looking here. I don't feel like I want more than 30%. Most likely, I don't know where we don't have projections up, ownership up yet, but that's one of the guys I want to look at because I'm hoping he gets kind of lost in the shuffle. But again, that's contingent for me on with Joe Val being out there. Looking at the other Grizzlies here, Conley, really the only other guy that is somewhat interesting at first blush. Going here against Cleveland, we do have Cleveland favored by 2.5 in Cleveland.
Wow.
I would have thought it'd be a bucket the other way, but it's not very exciting for the Grizzlies.
No. Beyond Noah, it's tough to really get too excited here. I mean, you should get another 30 to 32 minutes from Avery Bradley, who has been more involved offensively than he was with the Clippers. He's still cheap enough against a really bad Cleveland defense where there's some value there. Conley is fine, but Noah's the only guy that really is standing out to me. And Rab on FanDuel, obviously.
DeLon Wright.
Sure. I mean, if I get some, it's fine, but I would expect like 25, 26 minutes from him.
Yeah, it's a little tougher because he's not starting, so you're counting on him closing to get the extra minutes if he's going to go alongside Bradley there, which I think we've seen a couple times, so not the worst case here, but just be cognizant of that. That's another duo that I've generally their last few games since they've been in Memphis, I've set a rule where I only want one of them. Did not work out one of their first games where they both had like 30 fantasy points, but more often than not, one of them's probably going to do better than both of them at the same time. So, or make it be a difference maker. Looking screen here, looking at the rest of things here. Ooh, Chandler. How many minutes did Chandler Parson play?
Like 20. He's another one where if he sits, it just opens up wing minutes and would solidify, the other not very good players.
The other not very good players, including CJ Miles, Justin Holiday, etc. All right, now let's talk about Cleveland here. We have one Kevin Love, who, I don't know what to do with Kevin Love. So let's start there. Adam, have they not played? Oh no, they did.
They played Phoenix the first game back.
I think it's the Clippers is the one team that hasn't played since the break. But yeah, so there I go.
No, Clippers played yesterday.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It's just hard to remember because they played Memphis.
Thank you once again. I'd written that one off. So let's see. So Love played 22 minutes in the first game back from the break. He came out when they shifted majority of the first unit. He came back in and finished up the bulk of the second quarter, played the bulk of the third quarter, and did not play in the fourth quarter. Cleveland not any desire to start winning games themselves. This feels like something that is going to be reasonable. I don't think we'll see him with more than 28, 29 minutes in a game this season, Adam, so I don't think I want to go there. But what he is directly mucking up just a little bit is Larry Nance, who is basically playing opposite of him, which now screws him over. And then you've got Marquise Chris that's getting minutes generally with Nance, but that's yet another guy in the mix, and he's not really somebody we can go to either. I don't think, even though he's got a depressed price point, he deserves said depressed price point there. What do you want to do with Cleveland, if anything? I mean, are we down to the quote safe guys being Shetty and Colin Sexton? I guess.
Yeah, I want to move to the next game is what I want to do with
Right.
Cleveland.
Jordan Clarkson, he didn't close. He's
No,
coming
I
off
mean,
the bench. It's a shit show.
Kevin Love playing, it makes it, if you want to throw some, 150 lineup shots at Kevin Love at 6,500, then by all means, I have him projected for like 25 minutes right now. Sure, he can go get like 40 in that time, but it's clearly not a priority. But beyond that, like you said, it takes minutes and production away from Nance. It takes minutes away from Chris. It takes usage away from anyone who's on the floor for any of those minutes that Love is out there. You have Jordan Clarkson ranging anywhere from 23 to 32 minutes. The price tag is up a bit. We're not getting him at close to $5,000 anymore. He's pushing 6K. It's not an appealing matchup from a pace standpoint against Memphis. Cleveland plays slow. There's a reason this game has a 202 total. It's an 11-game slate. I don't see it.
All right, then let's get on to the next one. It's another one of your perennial favorites. It is Miami. Although we do have a little bit of news here, at least on the Miami side. Detroit, who knows what's going to happen there. Perhaps Blake Griffin won't get thrown out of this game, but crushed 40% of my lineups last night. But let's
not that him playing was doing much either, but
no, but it was like this is a great spot, and it's his third straight subpar game. All 3 games this year, he scored less than 30 DK points against Atlanta, and prior to that, he'd been coming in on a stretch of 4 or 5, granted with some with Detroit and some with the Clippers, but all over 40 fantasy points. It's like, really? That was shaping up to be a nice spot. But Miami, we do have word that a couple guys are going to be out. Justice Winslow will be out. He has a sore knee. And then James Johnson's dealing with the shoulder injury. They're both out. Dragic, the Dragon, is back in our lives. He will play, but he is coming off the bench, it sounds like. So that leaves, what? Richardson, Magruder, Waiters, Wade, a cast of thousands that are all passable ball handlers, even if they have to be the primary ball handlers. Let's start over here first on the Miami side. What does Winslow and James Johnson being out do for you, if anything?
It makes me like Josh Richardson more. It makes me really like Dwayne Wade. We had talked on the podcast that I already liked Wade because in competitive games we've been seeing pretty healthy minutes from him. We saw 30 in his last game, and that hasn't really been unusual for him to get into the upper 20s, low 30s in competitive games. Now I think you get more ball handling, without Winslow out there, without James Johnson to a lesser extent. Dragic being back, I just can't expect a ton of minutes out of him. He hasn't played a game since December 10th. He's coming off the bench, like you said. So I still like Wade at a really cheap price point. I think Josh Richardson runs the first unit. I would imagine that you get probably like Rodney Magruder inserted into the starting lineup for Winslow just as like a placeholder. But then that's, Richardson and Waiters basically running the first unit.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I'm just looking here. Hassan Whiteside, a less than stellar track record here against Andre Drummond. They've only faced, or both of them have been in the same game once this year. Let's see, Drummond played 19 minutes, Whiteside played 19 minutes, ended up with 24 fantasy points. Do you consider Whiteside? Do you know he always has foul issues? Would you consider Bam Adebayo? Because we've got 2 bigs here for Detroit. What do you want to do with the Miami front court?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because we really haven't seen Bam play along Whiteside much this year. Johnson being out does potentially open up, a few minutes for that if Spoelstra wanted to go that route. So I guess we can't rule it out. But it's obviously tough to be confident in either of those guys. 6,700 Whiteside is that price point where he clearly can win a tournament if he does play 30 minutes. It's just you can't really expect him to do that. So, be careful with how much you're playing. It shouldn't be very tough to be over the field without it ruining your whole night. Bam is at 3,800. I think he's fine. Like if you give him 24 minutes, he starts to come in as like a pretty average play. I think that there being 11 games though, I probably won't mess around with the Miami front court too much.
Let's see here. I wanted to check the Drummond only played 7 minutes in that last game. That was when he got bopped in the nose. and ended up going out. I'm trying to remember, Adam. Did he end up? He missed a couple games after that. It ended up being a concussion, I think, and we were all worried it had screwed up his nose from where he had that surgery to alleviate some of the issues in his nasal passages. But I think he missed 3 or 4 games after that. But that, if you're looking at those games, he went out with an injury, not an ejection or anything there. Just quickly looking at the game recap. Do you like Drummond, Jackson, Griffin, anybody else from this game, or is this the 11 game cross this one off spot outside of like Wade?
So I forgot to mention it, but I think Kelly Olynyk's interesting too. He's a capable passer, and I think that having Winslow out could potentially help Olynyk as well. He's also been playing more minutes lately. It is a big front court. Not that I expect him to have any sort of success defending Blake Griffin, but I think that the minutes should be there for him. He's cheap. I would rather play $3,800 Olynyk than $3,800 Bam.
Okay.
On the other side, though, I'm not concerned about the spot for Drummond. He's still cheap enough at 8,700 that I think there is upside there. It's nowhere near the spot that it was last night against one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the NBA that plays at a really fast pace. So it's not someone that I expect to be, jamming into my lineups quite as much. And that goes for Blake as well. He obviously disappointed last night. I still will project him for, 37 to 38 minutes here, but it's just not as appealing a matchup for the Detroit guys as it was last night.
Right, let's go along then. We've got Boston at Chicago here. Gordon Hayward is likely to play, so that may muck up some of our trickle-down effect there from 4 guys like Marcus Smart, Brown, etc. We have Boston as double-digit road favorites here, Adam. So that makes me look at some of the starters here and say Kyrie Irving, while it's a great matchup, doesn't seem to be the one that we're going to need him to go for 55-plus fantasy points. So at 9,100, perhaps not. Otto Porter... Oh, sorry. Let's filter on Ron. Alf Horford coming off a phenomenal game against the Bucks. Another nice matchup for him here, 6,400. That's a little more realistic for me. And then I don't mind Jason Tatum at 6,100. These guys are all coming in at 40 or 50% discounts from Kyrie. What do you like from the Celtics on the road as such heavy favorites?
Yeah, so I like Kyrie. I just like Kemba a little bit more at that same price point. So that keeps Kyrie from being a real priority for me. Horford has been playing really, really well. The one thing to keep in mind there is that we've seen in games, I'm not even going to say non-competitive games or blowouts, but games where even if the starters play the entire game, but it's just never really in question, we're seeing a lot of 30 and 31 minute games from Horford. And then in prime Eastern Conference matchup type games, we're seeing 35, 36, 37. So I don't want to rely too much on the 37 minutes that Horford played against Milwaukee. I think there's a better chance that you get around 30 to 31 from him today. Still, obviously, a really good matchup. He's been playing really well since the start of January. He's averaged 1.2 fantasy points per minute. Granted, some of that was without Kyrie on the floor, but even with Kyrie out there, he's been plenty productive. So no issues with Horford, especially on DraftKings where you can roster him at power forward instead of center. But I just thought it was worth pointing out that Hayward's back, and we've kind of seen that minute trend with him depending on game flow.
All right. Reminder, YouTube chat. Play nice. Play nice. We have Stan Williams going in a little bit of a timeout. I didn't drop the ban hammer, but we don't put false news in the chat. That's a nice little tacit agreement we all have amongst each other. Makes the free shows that much better. Also makes it, the more overrun this chat gets, especially in the live before lock, that's why we go to the premium Slack chat there at Osmo.com. If you have not yet signed up for Osmo.com, you can get all the bells and whistles. Use the promo code, I used the wrong screen for us. You're Fast Eddie Fear right now, Adam.
Oh God.
This is great. I'm just going to leave that up. Just like that. Let's just use promo code live before lock in honor of the show tonight. At
best hair day Eddie's ever had.
Yes, there you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I just saw that one. But anyway, ownership projections, just premium, just absolutely amazing. The Slack, you get projections for all of the important sports: NASCAR, PGA, NBA, hockey, which is just phenomenal. You get the rankings from Osimo himself, Alex Baker, by player. For hockey, he does it by line as well. This is just phenomenal options here. And the Slack chat, you can get all sorts of great advice, point, counterpoint, and it's a fun environment with a lot of people looking at a lot of different things that can mine some very good nuggets that definitely help you out. So if you use that promo code, all one word, live before lock, yes, even though this is the DFS strategy show, live before lock is the promo code, and you'll get 50% off any 1 month package that we have. Chat would like us to do a daddy likes at the end of the show since you're listed as daddy. That made my day. Thank you, chat. Thank you very much. Bottom of my heart. Let's get back here to the games. We have Boston and Chicago as we started down that path before I got dramatically sidetracked. From the Chicago side here, Lauri Markkanen, love him. He's now up to 8,000. He's getting minutes at the 4 and 5, which has been great. Not exactly the most imposing matchup here against Horford. Otto Porter, your mileage may vary. You and I have watched him way too many times to count, being Wizards fans, but seems like he may be taking more shots than he did in Washington, which is something that is helpful for him. 6,300, it's a fair price point. Not like he's, once per month he'll get you a 50 fantasy point game, but he could flirt with 40, and that's not the worst thing there in the world. We know he's going to get the minutes. So you've got Zach Attack there sitting at 7,300. Fine pivot away from Booker and some of the other guys. Not the best matchup for all of these guys, though. So I don't think I'd want to play more than one of them at their current DraftKings price points, but I would not shy away from playing any of Markkanen, Porter, Levine. I'm not as excited about Chris Dunn, and him actually being more healthy does take potential shots away from some of these other guys. But what do you like, if anything, from the Bulls?
Yeah, I mean, Levine's my favorite. Or, sorry, not Levine. Markkanen's my favorite, just because we've seen the rebounding numbers really skyrocket. Getting more minutes at center, but also not playing with Bobby Portis or Jabari Parker out there doesn't hurt either. I don't think it's a good matchup, obviously, but I think that he's still a reasonably good play. Porter at small forward is fine. He has a 21% usage rate since coming over, which is up a couple of percentage points from his time with the Wizards. I expect it will, hang out in that range, maybe drop a little bit, but I think he's okay. Levine is what he is. He's a usage or a scoring dependent guy that's going to get 29 to 30% usage. You'll need him to be knocking down shots against Boston, which isn't always the best spot to be in. So Markkanen is my favorite just because the peripherals are there. Levine in tournaments is okay. I would probably like to pair Levine with like Kyrie in tournaments or something like that, just to try and maximize my upside if Levine actually happens to have the monster game that you would like from him. But Markkanen, my favorite guy here.
All right, I'm being nice. I'm moving you.
Lopez
strategy show.
Lopez also played 31 minutes last night, which is interesting.
So they won't trade him. They shit all over him. He wants a buyout, and now he gets minutes.
He's played at least 30 minutes in 3 straight games.
They're not showcasing. Wait, let me think for a second. Does the NBA have the thing? There are no more trades. It's not like baseball where the trade deadline.
Yeah, they don't have a waiver deadline.
A waiver thing, right? So I mean, it's just down to the buyouts now. Well, what?
It's probably, he said, if you're not going to buy me out, then play me. Would be my guess.
Who knows? Bulls the next. All right, let's move on. We got hopefully some exciting games going on here. Good God, 4 left, but this one will reinvigorate us, Adam. We have Sacramento at OKC. You've got OKC coming in off the double overtime. Russ Westbrook fouled out, I believe, 3 or so minutes into the first overtime. I'm just going from the game recap I read this morning because I closed the wrong window. So he he played, I think, 43 minutes. I want to say that Paul George played closer to 50 in the double overtime. How does this affect your going to either one of those guys on the back-to-back here? Because this is a phenomenal matchup for all sides. We have OKC needing wins. They're 5.5-point home favorites, and we have a tick shy of a 240 over under, the highest of the night.
Yeah, I mean, the back-to-back doesn't really – I don't really weigh it in just because I'm not saying that it won't have an effect, but it's just too difficult to quantify the effect that it has any given night on any given player. And I would just rather not factor it in, especially for, guys like Westbrook and George. They're just such good players and, for at least from a fantasy standpoint in Westbrook's case, but that, contribute in a lot of different ways as well. So it's a good matchup for them. I think that also outweighs the back-to-back concerns for me.
All right. Aside from that duo, I guess Jeremy Grant would really be the only other person that we're intrigued by. If this was a short slate, or if you're playing the turbo slate, then perhaps Ferguson comes in for some salary relief on the 2-game slate that they're on. But what else?
I've never played slate short enough for that.
You haven't lived till you've. I had him last night. He gets his fouls. He gets some 3-pointers, and surprisingly, he was in a couple of their closing, or he was playing a lot down crunch time. Well, I'm sure they had him guarding Mitchell or whatever.
They actually had George on Mitchell.
Oh, did they? I was
at least for extended stretches.
I was in bed, so I was only looking at my phone as I was falling asleep for the fourth quarter and overtime. Because I'm going to stay up and watch this game tonight. I don't know why. Well, I know why I didn't stay up late last night, because we were doing the show and the podcast and all. Tonight I'm staying up late. But what do you want to go to in addition to Grant? And does Grant he's intriguing. I don't want to put him in the same class as Kelly Oubre because I don't think he quite has that level of upside. But the price discount does keep him in the mix for me. Talk a little bit about Grant and anybody else you see from
that. Oh yeah, so that game's not on Popcorn Machine for me to go back and look at it. But yeah, I mean at 4,800, Grant's fine. Since January 18th, which is basically it's 14 games now, and it's basically when we started to see Billy Donovan more aggressively stagger the minutes between Westbrook and George, and it's just what I've been using as a cutoff for my my projection rates for those guys. Grant's played 12 of those 14 games. He's averaged 0.84 fantasy points per minute. It's not a bad matchup for him here. There's plenty of guys for him to defend. It's a fast-paced game. So, I think he's perfectly fine. You probably get around 34 minutes out of him. He's in that same category for me as Marvin Williams.
What were I've got an alternative site here that has game flow. What were you looking to see for Grant?
I just wanted to see what his rotation looked like. Okay, how many minutes?
So he started, came in, played 7, went out, came back and started the second quarter, played looks like the bulk of it. Came back and started the second half, played just a couple minutes, sat out till the end of the fourth quarter, or I guess I got to read these correctly. It's always weird going to a new site. Played about 11 in the fourth quarter, and then looks like he played the bulk of the over.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, sounds like basically what you would expect from Grant.
Yeah. So he played 41 total minutes. So he was playing alongside Westbrook, and then he continued closing out, and they brought Nader in when Westbrook, along with Schroeder. There we are. I guess Schroeder's the other guy to consider. Granted, just reminding everybody, he did miss a couple games going into break. That was for the birth of a child. So he's not dealing with any injuries or anything like that. The back-to-back shouldn't be any issues for him. He played 36 minutes. Would he be another guy you'd consider in this lovely matchup against Kings?
Not really that high on him. I think that he has taken a hit as a result of Paul George playing basically every minute that Russell Westbrook's not on the floor. He still averaged a fantasy point per minute, or just shy of a fantasy point per minute, so he's okay. But the minutes haven't consistently been there. At 4,700, there's some upside, but I'd rather play Dwayne Wade, I think, than go to Schroeder here. But it's very much, I love Westbrook, I love George, and then it drops off to where, if I get a little bit of Grant or Adams or Schroeder, then I'm fine with that.
Right. Heading on to the Kings side, we've got a lot to kind of talk about here. You've got Bogdan Bogdanović, who should be back in the starting lineup if that's going to hold true. He started about 10 games or so this year, but at 4,600, gives him secure minutes. Harrison Barnes, yeah, you want him to play a ton of minutes, but at 4,900 in this game, definitely want to give him strong consideration as a somewhat of a value play. Buddy Hield. Who do you think George is gonna go? Did he end up on Hield?
It seems useless to have him on Barnes.
Right. And
but Ferguson can handle Hield too. It'll be some combination of Ferguson and George.
Hield at 6,500 going, and we've mentioned that Oklahoma City they play very fast, but they also have a relatively effective defense for their defensive rating. Would you still want to go to Hield in something like this, knowing that if he gets hot, they're gonna probably try to shut him down, make the.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't factor in individual defenders all that much, especially when you're talking about fast-paced teams. Just like look at Donovan Mitchell last night. I don't know. I haven't gone and looked to see what he did against Ferguson compared to against George, but Ferguson's been a good defender this year too. And you had Mitchell just come out of the gates on fire. He had a really big scoring night. So, he was dealing with two of their best defenders all game long. But, when you're getting extra possessions and you're as good of a scorer as these guys are, I just don't really factor it in that much. So, I'm more concerned with, how I think Hield grades out compared to other guys in his price range. And, if I'm giving Hield around 32 minutes, I think that he comes in as, a pretty average play for me where I'll have some, but he won't be a priority guy for me.
All right. Branching out from there, the last two guys, point guard De'Aaron Fox, center Willie Cauley-Stein. Tough matchup there for Stein, but 4,600. Kind of nice. De'Aaron Fox, 7,200. You don't hate it. And then coming off the bench, price up, 6,100, but you have one Marvin Bagley the third. Adam, any thoughts on a potential game stack here? This would be the counter move versus Atlanta, and well, this is the highest total of the night. But
yeah,
what else?
It's obvious. Yeah, I mean, game stacking this game's obviously fine. It's two fast-paced teams. The problem for me is I just don't think there's that many really underpriced guys. From just a roster construction standpoint, like George and Westbrook make it really limited on what else you can do with your lineup. Obviously, I think Fox, Hield, Barnes, they're all appropriately priced. They're not too expensive. They're not too cheap. Whereas in that Atlanta Phoenix game, there's just an abundance of guys where they're just, to me, some of the top plays on the slate. So that's why I think that I'd be more inclined to game stack the Phoenix Atlanta game. But I do like Bagley here. We saw Bielitsa get a DNP in that game against Golden State. Finally, we saw, Bogdanovich join the starting lineup, but instead of it being in place of Iman Shumpert, it was, in place of Bielitsa. So, and Barnes slid down. So, that is good to see. I think that you see probably around 30 minutes from Bagley. He played 34 against Golden State. He closed over Willie Cauley-Stein. In this spot against Steven Adams, I wouldn't be surprised to see those extra few minutes go to Cauley-Stein, but that would still give us 30 to 31 minutes from Bagley. So behind Bogdanovich, Bagley is my second favorite play on the Kings.
Let's moving along, so we got three more. We got Minnesota and Milwaukee. No update yet on Karl Anthony Towns. He is in the concussion protocol. We'll see. He's probably 50-50 for tonight because he's going to have to clear the protocol to get there. Last night, couple bar value plays. Just, we're not overly exciting. Let's approach this as if Karl Anthony Towns is out. I'm guessing we're not going to flash in the pan Anthony Tolliver, but would rather still look at someone. And let's assume that Dang is out because I have no news on him either. Borgie, not Luol.
Yeah.
What do you want to do running it back with the Minnesota value?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you have to just trust the process and do it again. It didn't work out really well last night for the most part, despite them scoring 115 points against New York. You got 31 minutes from Teague. You got 23 from Rose, which was disappointing. But Taj Gibson played between 31 and 32, which I think was expected. Saric didn't play nearly as much as I thought he would. So that's obviously concerning. But if Towns is out, you just see a usage bump for Teague. You see a usage bump for Wiggins. Saric should be better, and Gibson gets a bunch more minutes, obviously. So, they would still come in as really good plays. Not as appealing a spot as last night. So I certainly would not be setting a rule tonight to have one Minnesota guy on all of my teams. but I would still be getting, a pretty healthy amount of $3,800 Gibson. I would have him ahead of Olynyk and Bam Adebayo, two other $3,800 guys that we talked about. I'd be getting a pretty healthy amount of $6,000 Jeff Teague and $6,300 Wiggins, just because of the opportunities that they have without Towns out there.
All right, so let's assume Gorgie is playing. Does that dampen anything, or is it probably going to be Tolliver that loses?
Yeah, I think Tolliver would lose the most minutes. I mean, he played 20 minutes yesterday. Luol Deng played 29, so it's not like Tolliver was taking minutes from Deng. I think Deng would keep getting minutes over Tolliver because we've seen that happening. So I think that you would see Deng probably lose. You also had Diop play 12 minutes. Like, I think those would be gone. Okay. You would lose Tolliver's minutes or most of them. I'd be more concerned about those guys than, and I also still think that Saric probably plays more minutes. So like you could give another 6 minutes to Saric, take those from Tolliver, take the rest of take the 12 from Bates Diop, give those to Jang, give most of Tolliver's remaining minutes to Jang, and then you're in a pretty good spot.
Okay. So if Cat is out and Gorgie Jang is playing, then definitely don't.
Right. So yeah, I think the center minutes would basically go. I mean, they'd be split between Gibson and Jang.
But yes, and that was directed at chat. I know you won't lose.
Of what?
Oh, I was saying that to chat, I didn't address them expressly. Moving on to Minnesota here, we do have the Bucks as favored by a dozen at home. Of course, if they're going to get there, a lot of it's going to come from Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is now at 11,000. Adam, I'm okay with getting him, but I do not expect it to be a lot. I'm going to project him probably for somewhere between 55 and 58 fantasy points. So I know I will get a little bit of him, but that's probably going to end up being 6 to 7% is my guess based on this slate. I don't have an issue with not having a bunch of him tonight at this price point. Is that a similar approach that you?
Yeah, because you have James there, you have Paul George there, you have Russell Westbrook in a great spot as well. So it's tough as always with Giannis because he's the best fantasy point per minute player in the league. He's averaging 1 3/4 points per minute since the start of January. He's been a monster all season long. But you just run into the minutes issue where, for one, and this isn't predicting that the Bucks blow out the Timberwolves tonight. It's just saying that the Bucks are ridiculously good and they blow out everyone pretty much every night. So you haven't seen as many minutes for Giannis as you do for the other high-priced superstars. And even in competitive games, you're normally going to get in that 35, 36-minute range as opposed to like the 40 that you could get from LeBron. So, it certainly dampens my exposure to Giannis just because of the other options on the slate. I have him projected. Sorry, I just lost it. I think right around 60 right now. I have him at like 58 right now.
We've got the ownership in, so and we'll mention some more of these towards the end here. Again, this gets updated multiple times throughout the day, and then a couple times in the last hour, and then as any major news breaks. So last night it was, which is great because easy to grab this, throw it into whatever optimizer you're using. Hopefully, the Cruncher, the best one on the market, and you can react quite quickly to news. So Giannis is at 20, and this is currently we're assuming that Karl Anthony Towns is not playing, and I would also agree that the 12.5 point line would seem like Towns not playing tonight. I would guess they'll be close to 8.5. Me guessing. Moving down from the rest of those guys, Bledsoe, Lopez, Middleton. Nothing exciting. Maybe some Brogdon, but their prices are just not jumping out. They're all seemingly mostly appropriate here. I mean, if this was a different team, a game that we would think would be a little bit closer. I mean, the Bledsoe at 6,500. That's totally fair. That's totally fine. Middleton at 62 on DraftKings, totally fine as well. But I'd rather go to Kelly Oubre than those guys. I'd rather roll the dice with Payton for the significant difference, etc. So I don't think I'll be having a lot of Milwaukee this evening outside of the turbo slates?
Yeah, it's just kind of when you get these bigger slates, today we have 11 games, but even when you get those, 8 or 9 game slates, a lot of it comes down to the sites obviously for the most part are pricing players as well as they can, or, based on like their season averages or their month-long average, whatever, however they figure it out. And so on these bigger slates, you just get more opportunities to go to teams that are missing, clearly missing players that alters the value of guys. That's not the case for Milwaukee. Obviously they have one of the highest implied totals on the slate at 120. It's a perfectly fine matchup against Minnesota. They're a really good team. They have a lot of really good players. There's also just nothing missing on Milwaukee. So Eric Bledsoe is priced to be Eric Bledsoe, and there's no reason to think Eric Bledsoe produces better than Eric Bledsoe normally does. So it just makes him, a correctly priced player.
Let's head on to the next game here. We've got Houston. You asked me a nice question. I didn't go back and validate that, but I did go back and look at some of the rosters. You asked me how long I thought it had been since both the shooting guard and point guard fouled out in the same game for the Houston Rockets. And I had guessed, 5 years. You had said it was 20, or based on what you caught from hearing on the telecast. So not disputing that. But I was trying to think back of who was on those teams 20 years ago, and I was going to throw out Charles Barkley, but I couldn't remember if it was, but it was for sure not. But I've got one of their rosters up. So this was 98 in the 99 season. That was Barkley. Clyde Drexler was there. Obviously, Hakeem Olajuwon, and I have somehow blocked this out. Scottie Pippen played for Houston. How did I not remember? I remember the foray to Portland once he had left Chicago, but I don't remember him playing for Houston.
I didn't remember it either. I actually, for some reason, was like looking up Scottie Pippen the other day on Wikipedia, and I saw that and was like, I don't remember that at all.
Okay. I want to know what some reason was that you were looking at Scottie Pippen's Wikipedia.
Scottie Pippen had said that, I don't know, he made some absurd statement about LeBron James or something, and I looked up Scottie Pippen on Wikipedia.
All right.
Like, I already knew who he was, obviously. I just, like...
Yeah. You just needed a reminder. He was absolutely amazing player. Definitely top 50 all time. Even today. That year he did, so that was the year after he left Chicago. It was Houston that he went to first. Played 50 games, started all 50, played 30 minutes per game. That's not too bad for a 33-year-old player. Not too bad. Back to today's day and age, we do have James Harden and Chris Paul, who both fouled out. I think that Harden fouls out about once a season. So kind of interesting. Little bit of an argument calling out the head referee who game the last time Harden fouled out. So I think he has it in for him. You got to remember he was playing against LeBron, so I don't know all the calls. Star treatment there. That said, he is dealing with some sort of hip groin area, some sort of, as they say, it says cervical strain. So I don't know what that means. I'm suspecting he's going to play.
It says what?
Cervical strain?
Oh, it's something in your spine back.
Oh, I thought it was the groin area. Well, in any event, he has if you're a hockey fan, mid-body injury, as opposed to upper body or lower body. Somewhere in the middle, he has some sort of discomfort. Yeah. So he is going in a great game here against the Golden State Warriors in Golden State. The Warriors are favored by 9. Adam, that was a little bit higher than I thought it would, because again, I'm thinking that Harden is playing in this one. Let's first start off. Let's assume Harden's fine and full health. How are you liking him at 11,500 on draft?
I just don't know how to pay more for Harden than for Giannis, and that's without even getting to George or Westbrook or whoever else, LeBron. So yeah, I mean, I like him fine. It's another game where I would like to game stack it, except for the guys that I want are just so expensive that it doesn't really work. I expect it to be a fun game to watch, assuming Harden's in, and it wouldn't be surprising to see a monster game. It's just, I don't think you get Harden beating that group of guys enough to justify the price tag, as long as Chris Paul's in as well. And really with Chris Paul, it's the same thing. His price tags come up. He grades out as a perfectly fine option, just nothing. He doesn't come across as underpriced anymore. As long as Harden's in. If Harden's out, then obviously all of the Chris Paul that you can get. Capella is probably the guy that I get to the most from Houston. 6,800 coming off of a 33-minute game. I really like that price tag. Eric Gordon at 4,400. I hate rostering the guy, but I have him behind Bogdanovich. I have him behind Bazemore. I have him behind Wade. But again, just being able to get to that price point really helps you out in roster construction. On DraftKings, he has multi-position eligibility, so I imagine I'll have some of him. But overall, it's just kind of a team where I don't think I'll get a ton, especially of the guys that I actually like, like Harden and Paul. And it makes me nervous, but at the same time, it's an 11-game slate. There's a lot of plays.
So here's the ownership projections for these guys. And I think these are some interesting numbers. It just goes to demonstrate what happens when you have players appropriately priced or even at a slight premium and 22 teams in the player pool. So we have Chris Paul and James Harden projected for 2%. Okay, as we mentioned, Adam just rattled off a handful of players that he's going to be playing over Harden. You get a couple of those guys up 10, 15%. You can't spend. You can only have so many expensive guys on your teams. So that makes sense to me. Gordon coming in at 7%, and then Capella at 10. Those all feel totally appropriate for me here. Let me see what we got over on the Dueling Fans. Oops. See, Paul at 5%, he is $8,000 there. Capella at 4%, of course he's $8,000, but you only get one center on FanDuel, so that seems appropriate. Gordon is $5,300 there. We've already mentioned that it's going to be the Yvonne Robb show over there at on FanDuel at his $3,800. So I'll take the $1,500 discount to Gordon, even though they're not at the same position. And then Harden at 0.8%. So this all feels appropriate. He's $12,400 over there, so one of the most expensive players. So it's just kind of a fun way to think of things. If you think this is a good spot, if you think that these guys on this team can outperform the other similar players at their price points in production, that's where you get your leverage, because the field is not going to be on these guys tonight. But you have to dodge. You now need them to best 3 or 4 players at their position, not just 1 or 2. So makes it a little bit tricky. Looking to the Golden State side here, Adam, not really doing cartwheels for anybody, but I think Steph Curry perfectly fine at 9,200. A little pivot there if you want to get away from Walker, if you want to get away from Kyrie Irving. You've got DeMarcus Cousins now at 7,100. We've heard that he is not on a minutes limit now, but probably won't play more than 30, 31 in any particular game. But we have heard that Coach Kerr once is like, yeah, well, we're just going to let game flow dictate what we do now, and not anything else. Of course, it means there's back-to-back and other shit there that's going to in the mix. And then Draymond Green, 6,100. Draymond frustrates the heck out of me, but the price is starting to get to a point where it's appealing for me. Mostly these guys are just going to be on that final 2-game slate. The main slate, I doubt I'll have much, if anybody, outside of Steph Curry. What say ye with the Golden State Warriors?
I'll probably still have a bunch of Cousins here. Obviously the few extra minutes kind of push him over the top. Purely center.
What are you projecting him for? So just so people have a reference.
Minutes wise?
Minutes and points, just for
28 minutes, I have him up around 40 points.
Okay. That's totally fair. And that's about, it's getting to me, it's kind of the break point.
Yeah, it's not something where I expect him to be in like all of my lineups or, something like that. But he projects, well enough for me here. If he had power forward eligibility, I would think I have more.
Anything else you want to mention in particular for this game? Or we talk about these guys literally all the time, so everybody kind of knows everything about these.
Yeah, we talk about them a lot. Obviously, there's plenty of upside at low 9K price tags on Durant and Curry. I pretty much always prefer Curry just because he's the one more likely to just shoot every time down the floor and make them all. But, so if you go back and look, since the start of January, Cousins has averaged about 1.33 fantasy points per minute. Durant's at 1.27, Curry's at 1.36. Clay is at 1.07. Draymond's at a point per minute. It's just a matter of, catching whichever one has the hot hand any given night. So like I'd rather play Paul George or LeBron than Durant. I'd rather play Kemba than Curry. I think I would probably lean Curry over Kyrie.
Okay, that is totally fair. Saying last.
What do you say?
Chat's reminding me of, or saying I remind them of. I was trying to Google them. Or I spelled it wrong. Let's see. Final game of the night. Let's approach this two different ways. Let's say that Luka Doncic is going to play. He's listed as questionable. Very well is going to be a game time decision on this one, Adam. Or we should have news, I'm guessing, in plenty of time to react. But this is the final game of the night. So basically, your guys' direct pivot on a full slate is going to be moving over to Donovan Mitchell. But you're going to kind of need a 2v2 if you're not using Doncic at the guard position there. So just keep in mind whatever you're going to do with the flexibility there, that this is the lone island game, and this one is a good, remember correctly, it's an hour and a half after it goes off at, this is a 10 or 10:30 game?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock game. So we have two 8:30 games, which will have plenty of stars that you can use that money on. If you're getting risky or we don't have news, but if you wait up until the very end, it's game time decision, he's out. Just make sure you have an out, because you're going to leave a ton of salary unused and not. So, Adam, Doncic, let's assume he's in. Talk to me here about the Mavs. He has just been a phenomenal player. Love him. I know you are a huge fan, but matchup against Utah, not always the easiest. Now, Utah did play last night, as did Dallas, but obviously Doncic not, so we don't have to worry about a back-to-back for him, but he's dealing with the sore ankle. So putting that all in the mixer, what comes out?
Cheap enough price tag that I'm not overly concerned about the matchup. I think that the questionable tag will obviously keep his ownership down, especially since he didn't play yesterday. The report I read said that they didn't think it was a serious injury. He has played through questionable tags a ton this season, so I'm gonna assume that he plays unless I hear otherwise. And it doesn't hurt that you have Donovan Mitchell that you can easily swap to. You have Tim Hardaway, who has small forward eligibility as well. If you get stuck in that spot, it's obviously not ideal to leave that much salary, but it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to go ahead and take a chance and, probably have a good amount of Luka here.
All right. Branching off from Luka is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. The one guy, well, I'm good with Tim Hardaway, 5,200. He's going to kind of have to be their secondary scorer. Dirk's ceremonial 12 minutes or whatever he's going to play on a back-to-back are not going to affect anything. Dorian Finney-Smith is an absolute mess. Jalen Brunson, I thought, was basically the backcourt version of Dorian Finney-Smith, but somehow he had a decent game last night. I don't trust him. But wait, Dwight Powell, yes. And I don't care if Salamejri starts and Powell comes off the bench. I'm actually okay with that. Any minutes that Powell is not going to be getting going against any minutes he's not going against Rudy Gobert, is a victory to me, and he's discounted. Looking at the remainder of the Mavs here, what is bubbling up?
Yeah, I think that Powell's fine. The fact that he's only a center makes it tough. If we somehow got news that Noah's not playing and Valanciunas isn't playing or something, then Powell becomes more appealing. But if one of those guys is in, I think I would rather just get to either of them. Hardaway, much more appealing if Doncic is out, obviously. If he's in, then it's nothing more than a secondary play for me. I know we're not going to have a lot of a sample size here, but I'm trying to see Hardaway without Doncic on since he came over. He has played 71 minutes without Luka. He has a 31.5% usage rate. He's averaged 1.05 fantasy points per minute because he's still not very efficient. But, all the opportunity would be there for him if Luka sits. If Luka's in, I'm just not really that interested. Same goes for Jalen Brunson, who is $3,500. since the start of January, without Smith or Doncic on the floor, Brunson's averaged 0.96 fantasy points per minute in 221 minutes. So played 30 minutes last night in that spot. So he's someone where if you have multiple spots available to late swap, that you can use him as value. But if Luke is in, then I obviously have zero interest in Brunson.
Right, let's hit the Jazz. We'll briefly talk Thrive, and then we'll get on out of here. This has been a session here, and I'm out of soda, Adam. That becomes a problem. So should have brought an extra. The Jazz. Double overtime. Derek Favors, 32 minutes. Jingles, 46. Gobert, 44. Rubio, 41. Mitchell, 46. Off the bench, we had Jay Crowder with 37. Crowder, Favors, and to a lesser extent, Ingles really got there with the overtime. They were kind of before that. Favors had himself a game, Adam. At 10 of 11 shots, though. I don't think we'll see that one again. I don't really know what to do with this one. I like Crowder. I think this game suits him well. I'm good with Rubio. I'm still good with Rubio, even though he played 41 minutes last night. But the better part of this is these guys that are coming off a somewhat extended period of rest. Yes, some of them were, Gobert was at the etc. But this one to me seems like, wait, Gobert was not. That's right, he was slighted. There were tears shed. In any event, they have had time off. So I don't hate going back to any of them. I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going back to them. But nobody's really standing out from this one because we have so many other options. Late slate, yeah, I'm going to be hammering the starters and Jay Crowder on that 2-game slate. I really like that. On the full slate, though, what is happening here with you and Utah Jazz?
I still think Gobert's price tag is just too low at 7,900. He's coming out as my favorite play from Utah, followed by Rubio, who, it's not great that they're coming off this the double overtime game, but Rubio has actually been over a fantasy point per minute guy since he returned from his injury in January. He's played 14 games, 25.3% usage rate, 1.04 points per minute. Not a bad matchup here against Dallas. So I think that, he's fine. I think Mitchell's fine. Gobert's my favorite out of the group. But I agree with you that nothing is like a huge priority in the context of the entire slate.
Oh, they're saying I'm Bill Platchkey.
Okay.
A journal. Okay. All right. I can see that.
I can see.
I say goodbye to a little more of the hairline each day, but it's holding fast. I have not have to worry about the Friar Tuck just yet. But yeah, I'm going down the road of old Bill Platchkey here. So check in with me in 15, 20 years. I will definitely look similar to that, I am sure. And then Olstel Egos, shout out. He says I need I need a Mountain Dew pit crew.
Totally. You need a Mountain Dew what?
Pit crew, so that I can come in and get a new soda and all of that. Well played. I'll have to wear my Mountain Dew shirt on Saturday. Or one of I have more than one, Adam. Mountain Dew shirts. So there we are. People think that I have Mountain Dew pants as well, sleeping pants. Just saying, when you get to the point where you don't need anything for a gift, people buy you silly stuff that makes them laugh, and you're just like, yeah, all right, I'll wear it. Nobody's gonna see me. But back to this. Huge slate. This is going to be a fun one. Decision points are going to be made. We like and I've become a convert here to the mass multi-entry aspect, as Josh has mentioned countless times. Alex, Tom, they prescribe the same thing. That you should be going, if you're going to do that, play in the lowest stakes possible, and then fill up the contest going up the food chain. Particularly on DraftKings, because you're playing in anything that's $5 or less is not going to have the big giant players, the megalodons, if you will, because they've all played over $1 million in career deposit or career wagers played. Adam is a mini megalodon because he has hit that cap as well. What happens on the screen, Adam? Do you just not see anything below $5? Is that how it works?
Yep. Can't see anything except for whatever the large field, like $3 or $4 tournament is.
Oh yes, and there's some rule. If it's bigger than 50,000 prize pool, or I don't $20,000 prize pool, something along those lines. So the $4 20 max 100K prize pool, you get to see those, but the rest of the time they can't get in them. So that's where I'm having a lot of fun down there. It's, I don't want to say it's easier, but I will say it's definitely beatable. It's doable to claw and scratch your way up. And I love the leagues over there on DraftKings and FanDuel, the 100-mans, the 250-mans, whatever they are. And I'm sad that DK only does a handful of their 54 entry $1 and $2 contests each day. Literally, like one or two of them, if they even post them. But those are great ones because you run into other players that aren't overly savvy. You don't get the mass multi-entry. It's a single entry contest that leagues are. Some of them are 3 max on FanDuel. Some of them get up to 3 and 7 max DraftKings. But it's definitely the way to go. So this is going to be a fun night, playing a lot of different lineups. I'm looking forward to this, utilizing Fantasy Crunchers, what I'm going to be doing. You can use the promo code NBA Strategy, get 50% off any 1-month package here at Awesemo, and that does include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. So if you select that one, you get it at half off. And if you get the Fantasy Cruncher through us, you're actually getting it at a slight discount to what it would be regularly as well. And then you get all of our content plus projections, etc., the premium stuff behind the paywall and everything. So definitely worthwhile to check that out. Do you have Thrive up?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we're going to talk about Thrive here real quick. We're going to do a couple picks. A reminder, this is the Thrive app. I'm going to drop this link here into the chat. If you sign up via this link, you will go to their site. You will download their app. You making your first deposit. You put in 10, they'll add 10 to your deposit. You put in 20, or 100, they're going to give you 20. You put in 200 or more, they're going to give you 50. This is dollars available for immediate use. This is to have you come over and try out Thrive. So how Thrive works is it's based upon player props. So they'll put out 20 player props. You choose 10 of them, and then your score is based upon if you get things right or not. And the more likely something is to happen, the less points you get. The less likely it is to happen, the more points you get. Hey, just like player prop. So Adam and I are going to talk about a couple of them here. We'll do some NBA, and then we will dip on out of here. But that's a good deal. I can't play while I'm in Virginia, because even though fantasy sports is legal in Virginia, you got to pony it and pay $50K one-time initiation fee. So I don't get to play on a lot of these smaller sites, but I can play when I go outside of Virginia to some of the other states. Adam, what is our first question?
All right, first one up. Kind of an interesting one because it doesn't involve points, but Bradley Beal over under 9.5 total rebounds plus assists, 105 points for the under.
Okay, back to back. He's going against Indiana. 3 rebounds, 6 assists. I'm going to take the under.
I'm taking the over. I have him at 10.2 right now, and I haven't adjusted yet for him playing more minutes without Satoransky. So, yeah, I'm going over there. Next one up, Devin Booker, 36.5 total points plus rebounds plus assists tonight against the Hawks.
Over. Whatever it is, I'm going.
Yeah.
Now you're going to think about it. There you go.
Yeah.
Play Booker, play Oubre, play Bazemore, roll the dice on Dedmon. Don't worry about getting in a little DeAndre Ayton. Love this game.
Yeah, it's even action either way too. I actually have him right now at almost exactly 36. So I wouldn't be picking it. If I did, I would take the over just because I probably have him underprojected a little bit right now. Paul George, 44.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. I don't think I even need to look at this one, but even money on both sides.
How many? 44?
44.5.
I'm going to take the under. If they had not played a double overtime game, I would have gone with the over, but I'm going to take the under. And I'm going to assume Luka Doncic is out. Wait, Luka Doncic is... I did that backwards. I'm sorry. I started thinking the Jazz. They're playing Sacramento. I think the over is the... Sacramento spirited enough to keep them in. Fast-paced game. There you go.
Okay, so over on Paul George?
Over on Paul George. Where's my Mountain Dew pit crew? Make this happen.
All right. Over under 28.5 points for Giannis. You get 105 for the under.
I'll take the under.
Yeah, I would take the under also. I haven't projected for like 30, but I haven't projected for, like a competitive game and all that. I think there's enough like downside risk that I would take those extra points.
Okay. Last one.
All right, we can close it out with Rudy Gobert against Dallas. 28.5 points plus rebounds, 100 points either way.
I'm going to take the over because I don't think Salameshri and Powell are going slow.
Yeah, I have 29.2, so just barely the over for me.
All right. That is going to do it for us. We'll get this turned into podcast shortly. So for those of you that may have missed the beginning, you can always go back and rewatch on the YouTube channel, or if you're going to be out running errands, it'll be on podcast. Usually takes about 20 or 30 minutes for it to compile, but we'll get up there as soon as possible. And then we've got a show live before lock tonight. Tentatively, it's 5:30. For sure, it's 6, but I think it'll be 5:30 with Fast Eddie Fear covering the 11 games. We've got ownership projections are already out. We've got player projections out. We've got golf content for the single game slate, both for today and tomorrow. We've got action going on in Slack. You're going to have an NHL show this afternoon with Jake Hari. He will be breaking down the Saturday slate. Again, I really, really, really like playing with projection. Not found a site thus far that have been as trustworthy for me than what I've been doing with what Jake has. So I've thoroughly enjoyed doing that. I muck around. I like playing in the tiers app. I don't have to worry about as much about the price point, but then I can get in players. And oftentimes, you're not be able to construct full lines, or at best, you can get 2 guys on a line. So it's not quite the same stacking synergy strategy that we subscribe to here on the awesome NHL shows of playing full 3-man center and wing. But check that out. Definitely worthwhile, and it's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun dabbling. So we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and of course, it is awesemo_COM over on the Twitter machine. With that, gamers, good luck.